Okay, starting at the back end, this is a video that I took while I was taking apart my Zendure Superbase Pro, because when I plugged it in to either 110 volts or to DC in, it would act like it was going to charge, but it would always say 0 hours until fully charged and 0% charged. So it was not charging. So I sadly did not record taking the screws off, but here's all the video after that. Maybe let me reenact a little bit of it for you. So these little rubber things live in here. There's a cut out of them, and there's that little tab in here. You have to line those up when you put it back together. And the bottom ones are this angled so that they match the going around the bottom. And then it's just a whole bunch of little Phillips deep inside here. And to take them out, and then you start pushing on the side here and trying to pry a little black stick in the seam. And I can't do that with one hand, so that was pretty easy. You just go around the outside and push all the clips with a little plastic spudger. The most important thing is to document where all the wires are that come off of here so that you can put them back in the correct location when you're done. Well, this is going to be fun. This was the XT30 that was there. I'm gonna take a second to cut these off, but I guess that one can stay. I got this one that I need to cut off, not cut off, but make sure that it's disconnected. This one and this one. So let me do that off camera. Next thing to get done is these screws here are holding the rest of the internal contents in place. So I will take those screws off and then try and figure out how to unhook all this rigmarole so that I can remove the inner workings, get to the inverter, get to the batteries. Well, that was easy, but apparently whatever's going on in here is not going to be so easy. Looks like it was a T15. Alright, so we got to pull the 110 volt line. Guess we already pulled some of the smaller lines. Oh, I see. There's the more screws back there than I was thinking. So this side is where the power is hooked up. So there's the BMS, which means that's all likely active. 110 volt plugs are unplugged at this moment, but I have to get my screwdriver in there without shorting anything out. Batteries could be completely dead, but I don't know. Alright. I guess this is the next cable I need to remove. Looks pretty well glued in place. So let me cut it and then I'll be right back. Okay. With that removed, I now only have the cigarette lighter on that cord, so that one we can ignore. But I have this antenna over here that is for at least cellular, possibly for Wi-Fi, that I need to figure out how to unhook. Probably just need to cut all these zip ties. Well, This probably is in the way, so let's just bend it and pop it out. So I think this comes out. So I've been trying to pry these guys to get that out. Hard pressed to get past that one on the end though. I'm losing sunlight, so had to resort to other light. Whoops. Looks like something's holding it on. I think it's the handle. So, okay, looks like it's these pieces. And now I am able to raise it up without those in the way. So, handle's still back to the way it was. Now I just need to check that all the cables are not getting pulled through from here. These cables in particular are the ones I'm curious. Everything else should be attached to the main. Okay, actually that looks like it works. Problem is I forgot to unhook this fan. Wait, where is it? Alright, that's the connector. And there's a fan in the case. But I can understand how I would have missed it because it would have been buried. I've been accessing this area of it. So seeing this was going to be difficult. But it is just long enough to get the case away from the battery pack. So now I just need to unhook that one fan. Alright. How exciting. Now what do? Well, these giant terminals here connect to the inverter converter, but there's no power on them. But way under there, there's B minus, and way under there, there's B plus. And if I connect those two together, they're reading 1.7 volts, which to me says probably should be 48. So maybe it's just too low for even the BMS to wake up. So I am gonna try and take this apart further, see if I can get some batteries to take charge directly. To that end, I'm going to take off the cellular card that has the Wi-Fi and leave that with the external case that also has the outlets and the cellular antenna. No, that's the GPS. There's the cellular antenna. And of course I showed you the Wi-Fi a second ago. Antenna's built in. Alright, take those off. Take this one off. This one off. Alright, so there is one more right there. Another one right there. It's hard to see. And it looks like this one is around the ground lead. But that seems to be the last one holding the configuration in place. Alright, so leaving us just the battery pack with this lead, I guess that's it. Those two leads are the only things pulling from the battery pack. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 batteries around the perimeter. And then you gotta take this tape off. Well, I'll do that off camera, but it looks like there's also screws down these holes. 1, 2, 3, 4 at least. All right, that wire goes under, this wire goes through, and then the overcase comes off anyway. Fun. All right, it's actually 8 screws, and they appear not to be captive, but not very responsive to my magnetic screwdriver. But once those are out, I think you can take the wrap off the entire battery, the bottom plastic piece that is. So I'm gonna flip this over and lift the plastic off. Oh, nope, missing one. There's actually a little bit of glue in the corner holding that plastic piece on. Tiniest little bit. All right, got a ton of pieces apart, and I'm down to the battery pack. 2,000 plus watt hours worth of battery. Rumor is that's 160 cells. I guess I will count them once I get this apart. Those temp sensors disappeared deep inside the battery pack. That's nice. Alright, all the screws from the, take apart the power cord and the face, the inverter, and the inputs, the battery case inside the main box. Well, looks like there's not enough working cells in there to get back to life. The balance between here and here is 0 volts. Between here and here is 0 volts. And I think between here and here is also 0 volts. So, oops, sorry, no, 8 and 9, not 5 and 9. So I've applied voltage through a resistor pack for a long time, and the voltage there just returns. So I think it's time to take it the rest of the way apart and buy some new cells for it and get this thing back up and running. Got to take this guy apart, all the leads there off, and I'm going to cut the battery plus and minus and take the BMS off, and then do the same thing on the balance board. Just going to cut each of those balance leads. And then back here I've got to take the crossover board and just cut those pieces of metal that are sticking through the board and sticking out on around the edges. Take them all off before I can take the pack apart. This stuff is very strong, very hard to get off, but I used dikes and pried. I can't. Like that. Oops, missed one. And I probably should have put the screws in the Wi-Fi board back to support the pins, little pins right there, because they have now all snapped off with me putting the weight on this back section this whole time. Pretty easy, except there's almost no place to grab B0 and B13. Definitely easier with 2 hands. But yeah, pretty easy. Starting to come apart, and I haven't even finished unscrewing this last board. Alright. Blow dryer to remove the adhesive off the top, and now I gotta peel all of these metal pieces off of the battery themselves. One side clear. I'm gonna have to do a lot more work on this though. Took off the cover, covered it in parchment paper, silicone parchment paper to protect it. Both of them are in there facing opposite directions Then this is the fourth entry on this bit where they stick out and go through the crossover card. So just gonna need to make one of these that's only one deep when the project comes to fruition. Tested some of the batteries already on the other side, and this whole row seems to be great, but all the rest of these batteries are in pretty bad shape. So we'll have to recharge them one by one. Well, definitely prepare to be in a little bit of pain after doing all this. Alright, side 2. Lots of silver in the trash. Don't have these anymore. And now we just lift off the cell covers. Those are the temp sensors that go around inside. But now we just take them one at a time, clean them up, and test them. I finally learned that I needed a third-party tester charger, so I bought the Lido Kala and have gone through all the batteries. There was a single bank, so 1, 2, 3, and then a fourth one on the other piece of plastic is good, and that bank pushed all the rest of the banks into reverse charging, which killed all these batteries. So not going to bring it back to life. I did find a guy who was selling 100 batteries for $100, and these are 18650s, the 3200 milliamp hours and 3.6 volts, so exactly the same as the original battery pack. But these are 2650s, so they're actually a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna have to prop those 18650s in here, like with a toothpick or rubber band or something. And so I'm practicing my welds. I got a welding wand, and I'm practicing welding on these bad batteries before I put the new ones in. You got to put these on the ends of the batteries so that they don't accidentally short, since the ground and the positive are both right there. And then I'm just loading them up into the tray with the battery temp sensors still in place-ish. Okay, starting from the BMS side, I have welded on the tabs and my first two groups, and I'm starting my next group, and you can see what I'm doing is I'm pushing the 18650s forward with toothpicks with a little cellophane on the tip so that they're all pushed in one direction, and then putting the metal up against the plastic tab, and that way all the batteries should be exactly lined up, and maybe I'll glue them down when I'm done. Like that. This is the board that all the voltages are sent to the BMS. So the trick is to get all these tabs to line up with B0, B2, and now B4. Wow. It looks very similar to the way it did when it had the old batteries in it. All right. Now I got to work on side 2. Okay, now we have something that actually has current between it. All these pins so far have had no current, no voltage between them, but as we connect these sets of batteries here, there's gonna be current between this and the pins that are the tabs that are gonna come off up here. So this is where it becomes scary, and you really need to make sure that you don't actually have loose metal flying around that's gonna short them out. So keep the tabs towards your body so you don't have to worry about getting them shorted out against the materials you're working from. Notice I'm putting the toothpicks on the opposite side because the battery's now been flipped over, so I'm still pushing all the batteries to the same side. And notice that with the tabs on this side, you gotta lead with the tab, not leave the tab on the other side. so that's easy to forget as well. But be careful you don't get confused, because B8 is coming from the bottom one. B5 is coming from top one, so I put this in the wrong place. Alright, all the tabs line up. So now we just need to solder the cross tabs. And this is where it actually gets scary, because right now we've got 3 volts, 3 volts, 3 volts. But we're going to have 24 volts, I guess. And then 48 when we do the other pack. So not the worst, but don't want to start a fire. Alright, remove the plastic cover. And now it's time to remove the top of the bottom pack. So this is the B plus, I guess. And we're gonna take the whole pack apart and then put in the 18650s just like we did with the top. All right, this is the BMS side. We're on the bottom now. So this is the very bottom layer. I already put the plastic in some parchment. Okay, trying to find the working cells, going through the pack, tossing them into the tester. So far I've got 7. I don't think that's gonna be very many. All right, and another day, another box of batteries. I only got 7 out of the bottom part of the battery pack, but I am starting. That's the BMS side, this is the balance board side, and that's the crossover board side. Nothing on the back side. And so I'm doing the same markings, layout as the batteries were originally. And I know I never showed you the finished product on the other battery pack, but I will show you this one hopefully today. All right, all rings installed and put in place. And now the fun part. That went pretty easy, actually. Okay, that's one surface done. Again, BMS side. Those are the top tabs for the balance board. And those are the tabs to cut over from B6 to B7 on the crossover board. Now to flip it over and do the other side. Taped up the tabs on the bottom. And I'm still doing the toothpick trick to space the 18650s to fit in the 2650 slots. Getting there. Okay, bottom side's done. This is the BMS balance board. Wait, this is the BMS. Damn it, it's upside down. It's very confusing. Yeah, because there's temperature sensors. That's the crossover with the other half of the crossover from the other side. And I have shoved a couple toothpicks in there just to hold the batteries in as little motion as possible. And I'm about to put the plastic cover back. So then I bent all the tabs down and soldered them in place, welded them in place. Nothing's gonna short if you are worried about stacking these because they're all in different locations. So you don't have to worry about blowing anything up there. And then here's a little scary because you gotta put these through right next to each other. But what is fortunate is the way they're wired, these don't have any potential between them. And in fact, even when I touched these, I didn't get a short here. But I literally just bent these up and bent those down and then got these in and welded in place and screwed in place, and then I brought these down and welded them in place as well. And the same basic procedure is for the BMS. I just put the 4 screws in place and then cut the tabs to length, bent them over and welded them in place. So now we can connect this, because right now we're getting no voltage with this. There's nothing going on there. But as soon as we connect the battery sense, it will be live. But the next step is to put it in the case, so you gotta connect that before you put it inside. Now I gotta get all these screws, put them back together. Okay, all the screws put back to hold the inverter in place. Wire run under, wire run under. Comes out the other side before the whole thing goes back together. And now it's time to reinstall the Wi-Fi card, because we're going back in the case. Actually, I'm probably never going to use those cellular and GPS pins again. Zendure no longer allows you to re-up the subscription anyway. So this just goes like that, I think. Reattach the fan, reattach the 48 volts. It's getting close to done. And that was a dramatic spark. But all's good. Doesn't seem to be anything wrong. And I've got this green blinking light here. I guess things are good. All right. Sliding the battery in and pushing the inputs through the hole as you do it. Leaving these things out to be plugged into the front cabinet as we get to that stage. Now we put it on its back, and way down there we've got a screw, and then a screw hole for the next one, screw hole for the next one. Remember, there's 48 volts in that battery bank. Don't hit it with a metal screwdriver. And there's somewhere there's a, there it is, screw hole. That's dangerous. Resting on its back, I think, is going to be easier than I had it on its side when I took this apart, and the screw could have dropped into the BMS more easily. So these are, I thought Torx, but I'm actually using just a regular Allen wrench because I lost the Torx driver set during this repair. So just put that in, and then Phillips on the two other long ones. And then the base is secure. And the inlets, just catch it on the bottom and squeeze it on the top. Plug in the 110 volt lines. Plug in the feed for the Wi-Fi. And of course I got this in, I just said. So now all the rest of these connect to the front. Exciting. And I zip tied the connectors, the antenna wires that I popped off the board, the Wi-Fi board. Reattached the L brackets, which leaves me just 4 screws to finish up the install, just enough to attach the backpack. All right. Them all back up, but I'm leaving this one to the last because, man, did it spark first time I hooked it up. I was hoping that would wake up. Oh, there we go. It's not happy. All right, charging at 1%. Let's see how this goes. Okay, here we are a few days later. The battery has been fully charged and fully discharged a couple times, once with the wall and once with solar panels, so that I got the battery balanced or recognized as where the top and the bottom were. I had trouble connecting it to Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi button here, I had screwed down screws on the inside of this board, and this button was always pinched. So I had to take it apart and undo the screws, and I discovered that a few of the buses had actually disintegrated, maybe just rough handling over the years. And I found some brass screws that were slightly longer, and those are what are in there now. They didn't come through the face, so we're good. It's still pretty, but this button is back to responding. These buttons actually click when you touch them now. And I was able to connect it to Wi-Fi, and up came several years worth of messages saying that the voltage in the battery was too low. I think that's how this battery got killed. Somebody just didn't have the app hooked up and must have put it in a closet when it was out of battery and forgot about it. But now we have the Wi-Fi connection showing the same information, and we can do all the settings that you would want to do. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that firmware update. They make me so nervous on these guys. But at least I have all the functionality. I can connect via Wi-Fi. I can also direct connect Wi-Fi if I'm away from a base station. This unit does not have Bluetooth the way the Superbase V that I also have does. This doesn't show the Superbase M that you might have seen earlier that I was using as a flashlight. So I now have the entire collection of Zendure Superbase products. Alrighty, I think that is all.